In this video, let's talk Moab, specifically quad. Moab's something I always wanted to do. As the time kept getting closer, I needed to do some research on the trails there to make sure it was even worth going. It makes me feel a lot better to see videos of people with quads doing these trails, because I know Moab is like Jeep stuff. That's what you go to Moab for. When I couldn't find those videos, I realized that I was gonna go, and I wanted to make videos of my experience there, so that way maybe if someone wanted to go there themselves, they could maybe look back on videos I've made and they could feel more comfortable about going. How did I fare on a quad in Moab? Particularly well, I feel. I mean, most trails there were extremely forgiving in the sense that there was go-arounds for a lot of the gnarlier stuff. You could kind of work, even if there wasn't a go-around, there were easy lines you could take. You don't have to push yourself and take the hardest, nastiest line there.
Oh dang. Gotta take me the easy line.
And so we rode for 2 days while we were down there. First day, we did fins and things, the baby's lines back, which it's not really a trail, it's kind of like a single obstacle, and I want to come back to that. And then Hell's Revenge, that was day one. And then the second day, we did Poison Spider, Gold Spike, and Gold Bar. If you were to do that same trail, there is no way back that we saw through the dirt besides doing all those trails in reverse. So if you're gonna do it, the best bet would be launch at Poison Spider Mesa, but you need something to pick you up at the end, the trailhead of Gold Bar, because you're not supposed to be riding those things on the highway. If you're planning on taking your ATV out to Moab, and I've never done that kind of crawling, sandstone kind of craziness before. I did very little of it in Sand Hollow. This was definitely the most extreme stuff I had ever done before. We started off at Fins and Things, which is a great starter trail. I would highly recommend that. However, you pass Baby Lionback on the way there. And honestly, if you were nervous at all and you wanted to get a good baseline of what you're willing to do and how it feels and all that, what I would do is I would stop at Baby Lion's Back and I would do that. It's just a little obstacle, just a little hill climb. You ride on one of the fins, there's a steep little decline, and then you just loop back around. And that is a great indication of what you're going to see out there on those trails. And it would be a good thing to tackle, I think, a good test for yourself. But Fins and Things is a great starter trail after that, or even if you want to skip the Baby's Line back, you take a look at it and you're like, in the bag. Fins and Things was a great starter trail. It's really tame, there's go-rounds for almost everything, and then there are some challenging spots where you can really like test yourself. And then Hell's Revenge, honestly, is pretty forgiving in and of itself. There's a couple things that are, a little challenging, a little scary that there's not go-arounds for, but the majority of like the hardcore obstacles, that's totally voluntary, like Hell's Gate. Escalators, totally voluntary. Now, here's something to take into consideration is I'm on a Polaris Scrambler XP1000S. It's 55 inches wide, full-wheel drive, 1,000 cc's, 90 horsepower just about. I think it's 80 something, but I just call it 90 because I like it. My whole view of Moab will be colored by the idea that I'm on such a capable machine. That's why I hit on those test yourself at some of these easier obstacles, especially if you're not on something comparable to this, because your experience is going to vary from mine. And your skill level. So let's talk about skill level, actually. Let's break this down into like some groups here. We'll say beginner intermediate, advanced, and expert, okay? If you're a beginner,
how about new?
I probably wouldn't go to Moab. There's probably stuff for you to do there. I didn't see that stuff, so if you're a beginner, this particular video, not for you, because I wouldn't ever suggest a beginner take these trails. Intermediate is probably where I would start. If I was an intermediate, I'd go there with extreme caution. You're going to be happiest if you're in that advanced to expert level. Now, me, myself, I only see myself as an advanced rider. I've been doing it my whole life, but I'm nowhere near an expert. And it was challenging for me. It was there was a lot of scary obstacles. There was some difficult stuff.
You smell something, Rabbit?
Fear.
No, hey.
It's a lot of technical driving. It's not a place where you're going to go ripping and tearing. It's it's for crawlers. It's for Jeeps and the speed at which Jeeps do. Obviously, my sample size of trails. I've only been there one time. I've only done the trails that I've done. I don't know if there's better trails out there to start on or if there's better trails out there, more challenging stuff that you can do. With that in mind, I'll talk about day 2. And those trails became way more challenging, I thought. What I've noticed right away is further you got away from Poison Spider Mesa, the less traction on the rocks I seemed to be getting. Because in Hell's Revenge, man, it felt like you were like glued to that trail, you know? Like it felt like you had superhuman abilities just because you're just stuck to those rocks like glue. And when you start in Poison Spider, you get similar feelings. It's not quite as grippy, but the further I went towards Golden Spike and then towards Golden Bar, a lot of that traction seemed to be going away. Those rocks seem to be different in some way. You could tell like they're not that same orange color. They're not leaving the same real strong like rubber black marks on the ground. Let's not get too ahead of myself here. Poison Spider ended up being a ton of fun. That was actually my most favorite trail. You'll see in my videos that there's not a ton of go-arounds for some of the stuff like right out of the gate. There's some fairly difficult hill climbs, kind of like chunky. Not super vertical, but kind of chunky and unlevel and kind of uglier. The ugliest stuff on Poison Spider, I thought generally had to go around. So as long as you're cool with, those inner, like you'll learn real quick if you're going to make it all the way around. Right after Poison Spider, we went straight into Golden Spike. There was some pretty challenging stuff right out the gate. There's the launch pad. That was eerie feeling, ended up being, I was making a mountain out of a molehill on that one. But it looks crazy, it feels crazy. Going up to the flag, tell you what, that is way steeper in person, dude. The GoPro effect is real. It's at the Golden Crack.
Oh, I'm definitely going to want that rock.
I really started feeling the limitations of an ATV four-wheeler. Your wheelbase is so short, when side-by-side climbs some of this straight up and down stuff, they're at this angle right here. And then they get the rear tire to it and they'll pop up. Well, some of that stuff, you are like this on an ATV trying to crawl up. So you're way closer to tipping over than a side-by-side will be, especially the four-seater that I was following.
A bit of an angle.
So the Golden Spike, the Golden Crack, is where I really felt the limitations of the quad, and that's actually where I collected the majority of damage I received in Moab on the bike. Besides some real bad skid plate dings, I ended up tweaking the exhaust because when I took the golden crack, I thought my best bet was to hit it straight on, lift the front end, get all 4 tires on the rock, and then try to pop up
real quick, everyone just kind of
and
vacate.
because what's hard to see in the video is that crack is wide enough for my 28s to fit totally into that crack. Like I just dropped all the way into it. There was that rock down there in the bottom. You'll hear me say it in the video. That rock saved me. Because if it wasn't for that rock, I don't know how I would have gotten here. I definitely wouldn't have tried it the way I tried it the first time, which didn't end up working anyway. Because what happens is that rock isn't as sticky as the rocks in Hell's Revenge. So I didn't get that like miracle traction that I got on Hell's Gate. So you saw I failed, couldn't do it. I even tried giving it a bump, and I just almost slid down off to the side. Luckily, I had enough leg strength left at that point in the trail to catch it. But it wasn't fun, and it took a lot out of me doing that trail. So I ended up taking it at an angle, and that angle was scary because at first the front's lifting, you know, and you're trying to compress that front suspension, and then you're all the way up here trying to stop it, and then it falls down that way because now you're totally on the other side. And luckily I fell off the bike, and luckily I was able just to keep hold of the handlebars and keep throttling it, and I just drug myself out of the crack. So, and things they escalated from there even, probably not as crazy, but you'll see some of those, they weren't quite like big climbs, they were just kind of ugly. See on X, they call some of those things some crazy names like body snatcher and stuff, and things that Jeeps are worried about. Luckily, I'm not super worried about. Like they're worried. I think they call it the body snatcher because there's a big ugly rock off to the side. Luckily for a quad guy, that's not an issue for us. We're so far away from all that stuff, being as narrow as we are. But still, it was actually right around the body snatcher. That's where fatigue got me, and I actually meant to get to this point earlier. That's what's important, I think, with Moab, is that you are there with somebody on a separate vehicle. That the fatigue levels that I was at, some of those obstacles were getting scarier and scarier. Having somebody there that could have towed me or winched me up some of that obstacles was a huge relief off my mind. I would never suggest going out there without a buddy. And winches, I would definitely suggest a winch. The old Scrambler didn't come with one. I plan on making Moab a yearly thing because I had such a great amount of fun there, and there are so many more trails and I actually got to experience. I can't wait to go back. But when I go back, the Black Pearl will have a winch. There was a couple times where it just would have been nice, you know? Maybe I would have tried some more crazy stuff if I had a winch on there to get me out of it if things went south. That's my recap of the whole thing and about ATVs, quads. If you want to bring yours, what to expect. Let me know if you have any questions, if anyone watches this. Just talking to the void over here. So if anyone watches this and happens to have questions and about Moab and taking a quad down there, and you think I might have the answer, go ahead, shoot a comment, ask. You'll be one of one in the comments, so I'll probably get back to you. So anyway, if you watch, thanks for watching.